In this comparative study, I will be exploring the portrayal of family in the Royal Tenenbaums and Tokyo Story, with a focus on directors recognized as auteurs. Movie directors have long since used film as a tool to pull audiences into the intimate lives of characters in a way unparalleled by real life. Auteurs Yasujiro Ozu and Wes Anderson take advantage of this in their films Tokyo Story and The Royal Tenenbaums, where they explore the fragility and distress of families, a universal theme that translates across both historical and social contexts. Both Ozu and Anderson are auteurs, directors with so much creative and technical control over a motion picture that they are considered to be the centralized authors of the film. In The Royal Tenenbaums, Royal's quest for acceptance drives the plot forwards, simultaneously revealing the unequal power dynamics in families characterized by dysfunction. Anderson portrays this artfully using cinematography and blocking, as characters in power occupy the center or dominant space of a frame. This is particularly evident in Royal's unsuccessful attempt at parenting an unfazed Margot, where Anderson's unconventional framing complements their existing power dynamics so well it overrides the traditional connotation of power associated with a high and low angle. Unlike Margot's centered medium close-up, Royal is scrunched up in an asymmetrical corner, with leading lines dispersing the viewer's focus, making even us unable to give Royal the attention he is struggling to obtain. Other examples are seen in tracking scenes, where Royal's side-by-side blocking suggests him coming along well with his family, but the angled cinematography maintains the subservience of Royal's character. The use of physical barriers is also seen throughout the film, making for a more obvious indication of exclusion. The portrayal of isolation is recurrent in many parts of the film, such as in these frames, and in this scene, where the spotlight-like lighting emphasizes Royal's vulnerability. Anderson tells the story of a broken family by exploring power dynamics and character relationships and using complementary cinematic techniques. In a far more minimalist style reflective of Japan's high-context culture, Ozu subtly portrays strained family relationships using editing, cinematography, and spectatorship. The narrative ellipses is a frequently overlooked artistic intention to omit specific events from the narrative. The elderly couple, Shukishi and Tomi, cut straight from their children's homes to the resort with no narrative transition, and Tomi's falling fatally ill was also omitted. The former emphasizes how quick the children were to send their parents away, making it implicit to both the parents and audiences the inconvenience the Hiroyama children perceive their parents to be. And the latter is Ozu's way of demonstrating to audiences the transiency of life. Ozu ensures viewers fully grasp these themes by inserting pillow shots before and after significant events occur. This provides the time and space for reflection, enhanced by the abnormally long takes, slow pace, and objectivity of spectatorship. Ozu controls spectatorship through his manipulation of the camera in ways that challenge Hollywood convention. His idiosyncratic tatami shots put viewers at eye level as if we too were seated in the room with the characters. The camera, and effectively the viewer's eyes, cater to the direction each character speaks, as if mutually engaged in conversation. And Ozu often breaks the 180-degree rule as a means of embodying the truly 360-degree world in which we live. All of the above add to a sense of realism in Ozu's film, so that instead of experiencing the story through the subjective eyes of a character, audiences become a part of the story as ourselves, capable of thinking autonomously and encouraged to do so. In The Royal Tenenbaums, audiences witness the power dynamics in character relationships. Using a stylized form that corresponds with how characters feel and are perceived, Anderson constructs a subjective point of view in adherence to a formalist style. In Tokyo Story, audiences engage in the character relationships. Ozu employs a minimalist form, using the objective point of view to prioritize audience reception and achieve realism. The familial dysfunction of the Tenenbaums is epitomized in the scene where Henry, Etheline's fiancé, exposes Royal's elaborate lie.
I got a pretty bad case of cancer.
You don't look so sick, Dad.
Thank you.
The Royal Tenenbaums is imbued with elements of late 20th century postmodernism, involving a conscious mixing of styles from various time periods and touching upon themes of mass consumption and consumerism. This is evident in the mise-en-scène, which serves both an aesthetic and narrative purpose, enhancing Anderson's depiction of family dysfunction. In this scene, the retro television, in addition to being a reference to consumerism, works as a tool in the on-screen space to signal a shift in mood, as its chirpy background noise is replaced with a grave silence. Henry occupies the center of attention with his outstanding blue costume, juxtaposing the warmer-toned characters. It is also through using food props that leads Henry to arriving at his shattering conclusion, with Tic Tacs, burgers, fries, and soda typifying the modern-day mass consumption of processed food and the fast food culture of America.
I know what stomach cancer looks like.
With this new revelation, the dramatic irony is finally broken, as is Royal's carefully mustered relationship with his family. Anderson's film is so stylized that props alone have the ability to control the narrative. The family dysfunction in Tokyo Story arises from an intergenerational incompatibility with the theme of tradition versus modernism. This is accented by the film's setting and historical context. Tokyo Story is established in a Japanese on-location domestic setting, with the common placing of household objects in the foreground and the compositions framed by interior structures emphasizing the importance of household over the individual. Furthermore, Ozu depicts the younger Hiroyama generation under the backdrop of an industrializing Tokyo. They are constantly surrounded by a work setting, often mixing their professions with their home lives. The competitive society further drives them to regard their own parents as impediments to their jobs. At Tomi's funeral, Noriko invites Keizo to offer incense for their mother, a traditional practice which Keizo dismisses, at once highlighting the lack of parental respect, a recession from tradition, and a gravitation towards modernity. Just as Anderson's style and portrayal of dysfunction is both reflective of and dependent upon the time period in which the film was produced, the depiction of dysfunction in Tokyo Story is also unique to the historical and social context of 1950s Japan. After an exploration of families and conflict within both films, the common theme of acceptance arises. In Tokyo Story, Shukishi acknowledges that times have changed and priorities have shifted. Although his children have rejected the traditional expectations of respect and family honor, he is nonetheless happy for their success. Sitting side by side with his friend, both characters still adhere to Ozu's distinctive style of direct address, but with a slightly angled profile given their blocking, casting shadows that evoke a solemn atmosphere. The ending of both films parallel the ending to most family relationships, with death. In Tokyo Story, there is a grave tone to the funeral. The scene is characterized by medium close-ups, a slow pace, and a lack of non-diegetic music to allow audiences to be fully engrossed in the raw emotion of the scene. Tokyo Story ends in a blatant depiction of parental dishonor. In contrast, the Royal Tenenbaums ends with a redemption narrative, wherein each character has fully developed and the family is brought together for a final moment during Royal's funeral. In the following action, Chaz, Margot, and Richie have overcome their personal obstacles, and Royal finally earns the affection of his family. While family gatherings have occurred throughout the film, never before were all characters united under a single shot. Previously, both blocking and framing were dictated by the characters' conflicting stances towards Royal, often with Richie and the grandkids on Royal's side.
Uzi.
We don't mind, Dad. We like him.
Whereas the separation depicted in camera work reflected the separation of family before, this undivided shot reflects the new unity the Tenenbaums have achieved. Like in Tokyo Story, Anderson uses medium close-ups and long takes for audiences to absorb the emotional performance, but he takes a different approach by concluding his film on an optimistic note, following the storybook approach of a happy ending. This structurally aware storytelling is a trademark of Anderson's, using storybook motifs throughout the film as elements of formalism that challenge the audience's suspension of disbelief. Anderson's film is embellished with a stylized set, abundant camera movement and transitions, and non-diegetic music to complement its content, exemplifying the qualities of a formalist film. A wide depth of field is employed in most shots, giving the film a flat, unrealistic, two-dimensional look, unlike the realism of Ozu's deep space compositions. While Ozu keeps audiences at bay physically, this conversely empowers viewers to read into the actions and emotions of each scene. His film is almost an appeal for the audience to take a moment and appreciate the world around us, to perhaps recognize the greed and selfishness within ourselves, and to emerge from the movie experience with a greater respect for what we have. On the other hand, Anderson keeps audiences distanced emotionally. We are able to see and feel the emotions of the characters, but at arm's length, where one doesn't have to be analytical to understand and appreciate the complicated Tenenbaum family. Ozu and Anderson use cinematography, editing, mise-en-scène, sound, and narrative to convey a story about challenges and acceptance in troubled families, using characters and settings unique to their respective contexts. For the Tenenbaums, harmony lies in the redemption of self, while in the Hiroyama family, there is recognition for the inevitability of change, both in time and in character. Ultimately, both films illustrate the universal and timeless theme that there is acceptance in a family, no matter how flawed.